You have talked about this film as a very personal film, and I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about it in terms of autobiography and what is and what isn't autobiographical in this film.
Yeah, sure. It's always very difficult to remember what is real and what is not real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sorry.
If we use closer to the microphone so that they don't.
Like this? Yeah. Now, sometimes it's difficult to me to separate what was real and what was not real. Memory is so fragile. But I think I always start with images of my life and things that I wanted to remember. And what is the most autobiographical thing is that I arrived to live to a similar community like this when I was 4 years old with my parents. The democracy was arriving to Chile, and my parents and a group of 10 other families decided to move to this place that is quite similar to the one that I portrayed in the film. And I grew up there without the electricity at the beginning, far off the city, and it was a very particular childhood. I think it marks me a lot. You say marks me? Mm-hmm. And I lived there for 20 years. So I also live all the transformation of this place. And I think this film started with the nostalgic that I had when I was like 27, and I was living in this place again for a while. And I realized how difficult it was to that was impossible to come back to how the community was at the beginning. And yes.
So what is this place like today?
So now there's like 400 houses.
Mm.
There are still some dirty roads, but it's very different. And what is more impressive is that the city was growing. So at the beginning it was in the outskirts of Santiago. It's like far away of the city. We were like, I don't know, it was like 1 hour from the center. And now the city grows, and it's like, this is like an island, and there's like modern neighborhoods around the community.
Right. So in terms of what you shot for the film, did you have to reconstruct a lot of it?
Yeah, like deconstruct.
Deconstruct.
Deconstruct. Because I decided one limitation was that I wanted to shoot in this place. So
which doesn't exist in the way that it did in 1990s when the film is set.
Yes, in the 90s. So we decided to shoot in the same place. We were looking for some houses that looks at it was before, and we were also like deconstructing, like taking some part of things or building this house that is in construction, and trying to go up in the mountains to find landscapes where looks as in the past.
So some of these houses were built from scratch for the film? Or
yeah, the house of Clara.
Okay.
I was very obsessed in one way of construction, and I was looking for houses in construction. I couldn't find it, so we decided to build, we found the land, and we built this little structure for the house.
It sounds like a complicated production. I don't know if your producers want to weigh in on what this process was like. I mean,
the project took a while for us to set it up. It was difficult. In Chile we have this film fund, and it's very competitive. There's great talent coming out of the country, and when the fund proved to be elusive, we tried to find some other ways, and we met Rodrigo Teixeira, who's with us tonight, and who supported the film and was a champion for it from the minute we got to know them. And through his support and through his production company, RT Features, that's based in Brazil, we managed to complete the funds with then some other public subsidies from Chile and Argentina and the Netherlands, and in the end, Qatar. So it was a 5-way production, and then it took a while for us to set it up, but we're very glad that it worked out and we managed. I think we we set up a group of people that really wanted to work together and who committed their best to the project in all these different countries, from Rodrigo's team in Brazil. Then we did the post-production in Brazil with a laboratory there, and then another part also in the Netherlands. I don't know. Besides only the financial part of it, we also really wanted to work with people who were supportive creatively of the film, and I think we found those right partners for it. Yeah.
In a way, for me, it was like to creating a community again, like doing the casting and bringing all this crew together. Was trying to rebuild a kind of a community, because I knew that the film wasn't in the script, that I needed to put in life something and then to register again.
So on the subject of casting, were these mostly non-actors? I'm especially curious about the younger performers in the film. How did you find them?
So we didn't make like a traditional casting.
Yeah.
All the kids are kids without any experience.
So they'd never been in films?
Yeah, never been in. I've been very strict always with this, like to work with kids without any experience before. So I work with Francisca Castillo as cast director. She is my mother also, and she she also made the casting for my first feature film. And she lives currently in the community. So we were looking for mainly kids and people who work now in the community to try to rescue the like common experience of growing there. And so there are kids without an experience. There are like adults who are the father of Sofia is a painter that is currently living in the community. Then there are some professional actors. It's a mix of like very eclectic casting.
So the setting of Chile in 1990s, it's a very pivotal time in recent Chilean political history, and it's something that is sort of very much in the background of the film. Can you talk a little bit about this decision to not make the political aspect of the film explicit?
Sure. I think it was
This was a transition to democracy at this very particular moment.
Yeah, but I wanted to keep all the politics in the city, like outside. I wanted to work to try to also, because I like this idea of timeless, and when you cannot really.
It's kind of hard to tell for a while, like when exactly this is set to.
Yeah, and it was because I didn't want to make it that clear, and I think for me it was more about trying to get the spirit of the transition and to get the emotions. And I think this community is a little world and a little Chile by that moment. And maybe the New Year's Eve has this feeling of like a new beginning, but I didn't want to make it political and concrete. But I think it's a film about teenagers, about adolescents, but also about a country that was a kind of adolescence. I was with a lot of pain and trying to start again.
Let me ask one more before we open it up for audience questions. I think one very striking thing for me about the film is how it's a film that has, it really is a collective film. I mean, even though like a few of the characters emerge, like Sofia and Clara and Lucas, but it really is a collective portrait, and you get that in terms of the writing, but also in terms of like scene, shot by shot even, just like how full the frames are, of people, and your use with your cinematographer of these like very striking, like deep focus compositions. So I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about just the challenges of the process of writing a film that is truly like a collective portrait, and also like shooting that.
I think that was the most challenging thing, trying to portray like a collective status rather than like a single story. And I think for me, this community and this kind of life was so difficult to explain and so particular and so like without borders that I want the film to have the same nature. So I couldn't have like a traditional structure to trying to portray a life that doesn't have any limits in a way. So I tried to make this collective status and structure as closer as life with all the digressions that I wanted to have. And but it was difficult to have the balance also, and yeah, I don't know.
So what you shot was pretty close to the script?
Yeah, it's very close to the script. I think it was very. Inti Briones is a DOP. I think he's great, and he jumped into the project just like 2 weeks before the shooting. He wasn't supposed to be the DOP, and I think it was great because I was developing this project for a long time, and to have his like fresh air, it was good. So I think the film is a mix of things that are very like drawn by me, like very concrete, and things that we were just like trying to capture in the moment, and because I wanted the film to feel alive, not to feel like a script put in like well shot.
Right. I think we can take some audience questions. We have microphones in the audience, so if you want to raise your hand, somebody will go to you with a microphone. Over there, yeah.
Hi. Hello. Okay. Hi. Would you talk a little bit about your writing process? And I have another question, which is, I noticed the composition in the film is very unconventional. There's a lot of parts when the characters are not fully in frame. There's a lot of parts when the characters are occupying the whole frame. And there's also shots when like the arm is blocking the face and a lot of this stuff. Can you talk about your decision of the composition also? Thank you.
So first was about the writing process, right? I think I'm kind of invaded by images, like, and so I always start with images, and then it's like a collection of real and fiction situations or things that I see or I remember or I listen now. So it start like a real like a collection, and then I start like putting in order and or using more like in dramatic structure these images. Usually I don't write like too much. Like I take notes or I think about a lot before writing. So then I need to be very focused to write, and I write very fast. But I need to be just doing that. So I think it was strange because in this film it was a long time. So I don't know, the pieces were in one place and then I move it. I was using the scene for another thing. It was like really like it was changing, but it was the same. I found a VHS tapes, some VHS tape of a real forest fire that happened in the community in the 91. And what struck me, it was to see all these people like trying to turn off the fire with like trees. Like it was so absurd, like this, like just a couple of women trying to fight against the nature. I think, so I start with this idea of the fire, and then I went back, so I knew it gonna be the end, and then I was like constructing the world before the fire. So I think the fire is something visible. It makes visible something that is contained before and is more like invisible, but it's there. It's like something that is like growing. And regarding I don't know, I think I shot, it's very like spontaneous. It's very organic the way I decide to shoot. It's always when I write, I have the image in my mind of how it will look. But there was also something in the VHS that I like, and the woman who was recording this VHS wasn't looking to the camera, so it was like this. So it was very random frames. And I like that sometimes she was like in a very strange frame. So I tried to rescue some of this randomness also, where the camera is not always in the important place, in the correct place.
Was the forest fire something you experienced, or only just through this VHS?
Yeah, I was 5 years old and there was this big forest fire. And by that time, I was kept away of the fire, and I was in a swim, in kind of a tank. So I never saw the fire. I hear the screams, I knew about it. It was like a big thing for us as a kids. And then like 20 years later, I found this VHS, so it was the first time I saw the fire, and it's why I started with this idea of making this film.
Front row.
Is there any significance of why you chose Bernese mountain dog as the dog?
I had one. but also I like that it's very particular, and there is also it's like a class thing, no? That because in the poor neighborhood they couldn't have one like this, so there was important for me that it was a very particular dog and not just like a dog. Yeah.
Right there.
Why did you come up with this type of ending, you know, when there are moments when Sofia tried to leave and she didn't succeed, rather the dog succeeded of, you know, leaving?
Yeah. I think you just say the answer. I don't know. I don't like to talk about metaphors, or it's just like an image, and I think it has to do with this collective status, like being with the dog is being with Clara and is being with Sofia in the river. So for me, it's all about the same energy and end up with the dog living. And of course, there is something about the freedom that Sofia wanted to have too.
Loved the film. Thank you so much. I was wondering about the use of music in the film.
Yeah, we realized it's gonna be very difficult after the shooting. There were like 72 songs. But while I was writing, I already had some music in mind. I think the transition in Chile, it has also like a transition in music. It was a very random moment, like a crash between these like political songs in Spanish, like with like protest music, with like Michael Jackson arriving from the States, or so for me, while writing, I was thinking what was each of the characters listening, and I like when you use like musical, like popular music to in another like place also, and as the characters are very contained and all the emotions are like very thin. I wanted the music to be like carry these emotions, and so the casting was very musical. We were like playing music with the kids, and they are all very talented, and I wanted the music to be very significant. And then we had Sokyo is here, is a music advisor, and he helped us a lot to bring some of the songs that I wanted, but also like to create other songs like similar to what we put in the editing. It was yeah.
Yeah, and we only had like so many resources, so we had to be very smart about the way we could use those. And Sokyo, who's here in the audience tonight, was very instrumental and helpful in like helping us find a way to have these songs that we really wanted for certain moments and other options for other moments. So yeah, and we also worked with 2 Argentinian composers who made some original music for the film in like certain sections, plus all these other songs from like that we all know, you know, when Sofia sings and in the New Year's party, or others. And there's also like a lot of Chilean music from the area, and we really wanted also to give this feeling of a certain moment in time. this idea, this feeling of like the early 90s without it being a precise year, but this feeling of like probably that era. Yeah.
Any more hands? Another front row question.
Just a name. Where does the name come from? The title.
Question about the title.
I think I remember I read this phrase, and it was the first thing that I had, and I remember these things you write when you are like teenager, like in the walls, or like almost like a statement. And I think the film has to do with early loss of illusions, and people. And I was looking for these kids like that feels older than they are, or feel they are, yeah. I don't know. Has to do with this. It's also, I feel too late to die young. Yeah.
We have time for one more question, so if anybody has one. Am I not seeing any hands? Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted you actually to talk a little bit about your about the actor who plays Sofia, because it seemed like this. I met him. You introduced me in Locarno, and it seemed like this was a very important film for him. And because of what happened after the film, if you can say a little bit about that, I think people would be interested in.
Sure. No, I think that the film. I think this film kind of changed things, and it was for me a very important process, and also for the kids. So Demian, in particular, the main character, when I met her, it was Mariana, and I was captured by her. Like it was very complex. I didn't know what was it, but I think you cannot like create complexity in the actors. I was just like very attracted by some indefinition also. You couldn't say how old was she and gender. Yeah. And after the shooting, so it was Mariana while we make the film, and after the shooting, she approached us because was like feeling as a boy. So she asked if it could be Demian in the credits instead of Mariana. And we say, of course, yes. And so I start like accompany the process of transition. And so I think during the shooting, he was kind of in a turmoil, in a transition, a real transition. And so now, like 2 months ago, before the premiere in Locarno, we had a lunch, and he told me, it's super strange that I made a film as a girl, and I will premiere it now in Locarno as a man. So it's really moving. This, I think, it's very special, because the film captured her as the last hair of him, or I don't know how to say, the last girl, and it's been beautiful to be part of it. But the film is not about that. It's something that just happened to us. And also other things, Lucas, the guy, is Antar. He lost his father 2 days before the shooting. So it was like a film that many things crossed these kids. And after the shooting, he told me, this film saved me, really. Like, and now they're like, my family is like expanded every time I make a film, but these kids are like family to me, yeah.
Yeah, they just gave us so much, and the fact that they were like in their own personal turmoil at the time, and they still wanted to do the film, you know, with Antar, the actor who lost his dad like 3 days before shooting. We were like, we'll do whatever you want to do, like we'll pause it, we'll postpone it if you need to, we'll, you know, like whatever you need to do. And he was so sweet in terms of like, and so mature. And he was only like 15 or 16, and he decided, he was like, no, this is helpful for me. This will help me like move forward in a way. And we went and we shot, and at the end he was so grateful and like appreciative, and we owe everything to these kids because they really gave their all. Yeah.
And yeah, I think that because of all of this, the shooting was so beautiful, and so we take care of making a very like cozy ambient. So we had a lot of fun, and it's why I was saying it was like to create a new community. So we spent like 5 weeks together, and now it's also a film, which is great, and it's here. I'm very happy. But the process itself, it was very important.
I think that comes across in the film.
Thank you.
So thanks to all of you for being here. And thank you. Good night.